is Keyed In with Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. And now, here are your hosts, Max Rabin and Brent Jackson.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Keyed In Podcast. I'm Max Rabin.
And I am Brent Jackson.
Brent, today it's State of the Market. We've got our round table here. We've got Rob Sanders from the Rob and Brent Group and Mattia Diffuso, Rob and Brent Group. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
First of all, how's your summer, Brent? What's going on?
My summer's been good. It's been tennis all around. We went to Wimbledon for a couple of days. We went to City Open, which was amazing, our first time ever.
Nice.
And now we're doing we've been at Rick Macy for a couple of weeks, couple more weeks at Rick Macy before we go to Little Mo's up in New York, same time as the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
Now we're at JTCC, and I'm finding the traffic from College Park to here, which I think is 7 miles, is a nightmare. I mean, it's 7 miles, but it's a solid hour to get here.
So wait, how old's your son been now?
He just turned 10.
He's 10, and hehe's doing a lot. He's really training.
He's training. He beats me now. We were first time I played him in a year, and we did a tie break, and he beat me. I was like 7-2. I can't return his shots because it's just. I mean, he's got a lot of power behind his shots.
Wow.
And I never played. I mean, I can play recreationally,
Mm-hmm.
but not with him. He's good. So that's been my summer with tennis.
Rob, what's up? What's your summer been about? Have you been working or you been traveling?
I've been working with, my other half out at tennis tournaments and camps and all that. I have to make sure that, we're
Hold
still
down the
working
fort.
24/7.
Someone's got to hold the fort down.
Even though he was at Wimbledon and ratifying a deal on the actual, I think, close to the court, he was there from his chair
Nice.
ratifying a deal. So it does make me feel a little bit guilty if he can do that, So I have no problem about, doing ratification stuff at 11 o'clock at night in the office,
Right.
It's got to be done. So
Oh yeah.
we have a good understanding. So I was able to get a little bit of vacation. I went to North Carolina, Nags Head, to look at real estate,
Mhm.
which was an
Yeah.
auction and on the beach, but a lot more than what I had anticipated. I thought Nags Head was very cheap, but now I realize it's not cheap.
So
It's
what was
not.
the auction?
It was a foreclosure, and it was on a beach home that was about $1 million.
Okay.
It started at $1 million or
Started
ended
at
at $1
$1
million?
million.
Was
yeah.
it one of those big ones?
Big ones,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And you have the bay on one side and the beach on the other. This was more on the bay because the ones on the beach are usually washed out.
Yes.
So
They call it the Bay or the Sound.
it's on the sound.
Sound side.
Yeah.
Pimlico.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right? Is that
I think it's the Sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really should know all of that.
Yes, you should.
Yeah.
From where my family's from. Mattia, what's up? Where you been?
I've been here, just getting ready to head to Greece. That's my big vacation for the
Nice.
year in a few weeks. I did a few day trips. I went to Annapolis the other day.
Okay.
That was nice. It's always nice to have, just quick escape, 40 minutes from D.C. and
Yeah.
you're by the water.
That's
So-
Did you on a boat?
I did go on a boat. It's like a sunset cruise, and they serve drinks, and it's with other people. It's not a
Mhm.
private boat, but it was nice.
I'm not a boat person. Wizards had a boat thing last night.
Mm-hmm.
So they invite all the members of their, whatever, where my seats are. And you're there from like 6 until 9. I'm like, I don't want to go on a boat with a bunch of strangers. Yes, they could buy, multi-million-dollar houses, but I'm like, if I want to get off the boat,
not
I
off the
can't
boat.
get off the boat. I
No.
got to wait till it docks at 9 o'clock.
That's why you just drink until you don't know.
Until you
what's
pass
going on.
out,
Yeah,
you're
I
like,
think
I'm
boating
done.
and drinking are like kind of hand in hand, especially on that kind of little
Right.
mini cruise. Well, I just got back from the big trip to Japan with the family. It was like the once in a lifetime opportunity. Obviously, my girlfriend's Japanese. She hasn't been back to see her family, because of the pandemic. They've been very shut down over there. And so we scheduled this trip, and then suddenly my sister and her husband were like, well, we'll come meet you there. It's like, okay.
Great.
And then my father and his wife were like, oh, well, we'd like to come too. It's like,
Yeah.
okay. And then my cousin and her husband. So all of us were there in Japan at the same time. Like sort of just, it's hard to coordinate that many people at once. But my girlfriend did an incredible job. We had some huge dinners with her family that were like 3 hours plus dinners, okay?
Wow.
Like courses just keep coming out. And
They're making the food, or it's at a restaurant?
we had like a restaurant buyout
Okay.
at this one place that it was all kinds of stuff. Okay,
That's amazing.
like
Wow.
some of it was like Tony Bourdain level. It's like you would not have stumbled into this if it was just you traveling, right?
Right.
Hanging out with like real Japanese people and stuff. But it was a great trip. Tokyo is an amazing city. For anyone who hasn't been, that's top on my list now, for sure.
Right.
So agents that are listening, you're on a 2-week trip. Yes, you have a team behind you, but what are you telling your clients?
I just told my top clients, like the ones that I was working with immediately right now, buyers who I have active buyers right now and deals that were in progress. I just said, I'm going to be overseas in Japan. I'll be available by email and text, but the schedule is, it's like 13 hours difference. It's literally the opposite schedule. Here are my 2 top administrators who are going to be handling everything. If you have any questions, let me know. Like, that's it. And look, we got to live our lives, right?
Right.
And I find that when you're just straightforward with people, I mean, that trip is imminent. That trip's been on the books for a year. There's nothing changing. It wouldn't matter what was happening. So people are very like, oh, that's awesome.
Usually they're excited.
Yeah.
I think they're like, oh yes, you deserve a trip. Go enjoy. And I'm like, great.
Or
We're all on the
they're
same page.
especially something like that. I mean, they're interested in where you're going. They want to
Yeah.
know what you did, what you're doing. They want to hear about it when you get back. I think it's positive. Absolutely.
In the grand scheme of things, probably 80% of what come through voicemail, text, emails, it's maintenance. Where's the lockbox? You didn't mark this on your lead-based paint disclosure. Where are the keys? Can't find the keys. Can't find the lockbox. The toilet's not working. All of that can be handled by your team. But
Yeah.
did you have any new leads come in?
Not really. It's also this time of year. I mean, we're going to get into this right now. The market for us has been a lot slower this year, and the summertime, particularly, interest rates went up a little bit recently. So it's a lot of buyers just sort of sideline themselves. So it kind of all, I mean, I had things closing while I was away, but it was already said and done. So as far as new things coming in, that was probably the most perfect 2-week period I could have taken that trip. So that's just how it worked out.
Yeah. And that's a great segue into state of the market, like what's going on with our book of business. What do we perceive as going on in the hyper-local being like Washington, D.C. in our market? And to our listeners, it'll be a little bit slanted because we have 3 of our team members on here, and we all have a little bit different markets, but we're all like urban D.C. for the most part.
Yeah. Well, we have some articles here. Thank you to our producer, Lauren, who gave us some stuff to lead us into these conversations. How about this one? Washington Post, the U.S. housing drought is ending. What does it mean for prices? First of all, housing drought. What does that mean to you, Brent?
Housing drought is lack of supply.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, and it's still what we're hearing across the board. It's like there's no inventory. We have developers calling every day, all day. Where's the next deal? When are you going to send me something? Our active buyers that are looking in different sub-markets, there's nothing on the market. There's nothing good on the market. And again, it goes back to the Ann and Nate conversation we had with them. It's going to be dependent on which market we're talking about. If you're looking for a 1-bedroom downtown, there's a plethora of them. But if you're looking for that single-family house in Edgemore, those are far and few between.
So, Mattia, with the housing drought ending, according to this article, meaning maybe some more supply is coming down the pike here, what do you think that's going to do with prices, though? I mean, we've seen prices sort of stabilize in some parts of the market, but they've still also gone up with other parts of the market. What do you think about the supply and pricing going into this fall market?
I think that, we've had the lowest amount of homes for sale for the past 5 years, this year alone. And but the prices have continually stayed or sort of increased even. So we're not seeing any sort of housing recession by any means. I think maybe we saw it a little bit in the fall or in the winter of the beginning of this year, but we're out of that. I think as rates sort of slide down a little bit, or maybe they stabilize just a little bit lower than what they are now, we should see people enter the market, sellers particularly, which I think buyers are on the sidelines right now, but so are sellers. Because the seller, unless they have to sort of move for a specific reason, family situation, a new job, some other state or something like that, or an investor getting rid of their investment, I don't think they're deciding to upgrade right now. But hopefully as we see rates come down a little bit, then that will motivate sellers, and that hopefully brings new inventory. But I think that at that point, then we have maybe possibly more competition because then the buyers are coming back in.
Buyers will be more enthusiastic to come back to the market.
Right, exactly.
Rob, have you had new buyer leads over the summer?
I've had a few new buyer leads, and it's funny. I was listening to Mattia talk about the housing drought, et cetera. We are kind of immune here in DC. We focus a lot on DC. Rob and Brent, our team is a lot in DC, but we do have like Arlington and Alexandria too that we focus on. And I think about the fact that I've shown some of the newer buildings, like the brand new buildings, like 635 Slater or the Dillon, they're still holding to high pricing and they're still getting it. Mm-hmm. So it just goes to show, I think it's location, location, location. And I'll have a buyer will call me up and go, hey, look, I only want a one-bedroom new construction. And I go in there and there's still $600 to $650 for a one-bedroom new construction, and they're not really ready to negotiate with me. So, I mean, it's been a good thing, but it does show that there are people out there. And when I end up talking to them, I tell them, oh, well, it's 7.2 right now, or, for conforming, it's probably going to be a little bit lower, like maybe 6.25. I remember back when I bought my first home in Logan, it was 8%, and we were excited about it being at 8%. We were like, wow. Mm-hmm. So now it's kind of funny that, when they keep bringing up the rate, I tell them back, I'm in my, 20th year here, I keep going back to, well, we paid 8 and had no problem, and you'll pay 8 and have no problem. Mm-hmm. So I think it's all relative, because in the end, life does happen, right? You have to either move, get married, divorce, school, kids, et cetera, et cetera. You are moving on with life, and so you have to live somewhere. So,
to be true to the article, again, if you read into the article from the Post, the U.S. housing drought is ending. I think that's very misleading, because I don't think that the end user seller is going to be jumping into the market selling their house. I think it's more of, and if you read the article, it's the housing or the supply chain is loosening up a little bit. Cost and supply chain from X to the actual building site is loosening up. So there's going to be more new construction, as Rob just alluded to. And those builders, developers that have a lot of product online, they're not really negotiating on price. Usually you might get 3 to 5% off, and it's going to be wrapped up in some sort of a credit. But a plethora of new homes coming on from, Jimmy John's down the street isn't going to be coming on the open market, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I feel like prices, especially over the last few months, have stabilized in our market a bit. We've definitely seen some stuff hang in the inventory longer than usual. But again, it's like we were talking about these sub-markets. With the interest rates being like plus 7% for conforming right now, which I just sold a condo the other day, and I saw that come across on the lender letter. I was like, oh, whoa, yeah, we're right there. Yeah.
Yes.
That's about as high as it's been, I think.
Yeah.
And I think for those buyers who are looking in that kind of market, who are still very, financing dependent, it's stabilized. There seems to be enough inventory to sort of go around. It's not as excited of a market. But our wealthiest buyers, especially you guys talk about Dillon, doing these beautiful luxury renovations, and there's plenty of other developers out here doing great work. That stuff is sought after. And the wealthiest buyers they're immune to that. And
Correct.
That market is still doing really well. There might be a little price sensitivity here and there with some of those products, but they usually are going very quickly. And there's just not enough of that. And I don't think they can build enough of that for the wealthiest buyers in our
And many
city.
are cash, so they're not as affected.
Or if they're borrowing money, they're borrowing it on a portfolio or, through their financial institution. It's a different planet.
Right.
So.
And on that same token, a lot of the what would be sellers are renovating their homes, right? So they either want something turnkey, or because they're in a 3% interest rate. If you talk to architects and builders right now across the board, like they're booked up.
Mm-hmm.
They're 6 months out, and their prices are getting up there as well. So we spoke with an agent yesterday. We're showing a house off market today where they own 3 homes. They bought a home to tear down and build. They've got so many quotes from different builders that the pricing is just astronomical. They're close to $500 a square foot to build. They don't want to build, so they're reconsidering selling that house they just bought and then just renovating the interior house that they're currently living in.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Let's go to record number of projects competing for tenants. DC apartments post slow rent growth. So this is about the rental market. This one is from BizNow, a recent article. Slow rent growth. That's an inventory thing. My thoughts on this are, this is pretty obvious. If you are in downtown DC, there are so many new projects, brand new rental buildings coming out of the ground, getting ready to open up right now. I was showing stuff in Noma area a few weeks ago, and there are like 3 new buildings just getting ready to open down there.
Yes.
And people are very interested in that. They're all competing with these amenities. I mean, it's supply and demand. I mean, they'll fill them. I'm sure they will, but there seems to be a lot of supply of that kind of product out here.
Right.
So that's, and not to mention, all this discussion of potentially converting commercial space into residential for all of the work from home people who haven't come back. There's still a lot of vacancy in a lot of this downtown district right here.
Right.
Brent, what do you think of that?
It's interesting, right? We get, and I would rephrase in the sense that we actually just got a lead this morning of someone that wants to rent their space down in Velocity, and that's, Navy Yard. There's a ton of apartment buildings down there. It's an amenities arms race with pools, basketball courts, golf simulators, dog wall stations. Velocity is very nice, but doesn't have all of that. But yet that renter is going to be competing with those other buildings.
That landlord's going to have to discount whatever rent they're charging
So
to
that's
compete with those.
and then, like, do we want to take it as a team? So I mean, I throw it out to team being 3 of us are here, but
Right.
did you take that as a team, or do you pass it off to a property manager? On the flip side, if you have an investor coming in that's looking to buy, park $1 million in Washington D.C., what are you telling them? Because you have this article that's true to the point. You're going to be competing with other like kind new buildings that are probably going to have more amenities than what you have to offer.
Again, it's Rob and I have a client who just purchased a condo in Potomac Yard, Alexandria, great location. She also purchased a home a month before that, and both as an investment property. And the home, has a little yard. It's 3 bedrooms. It's a perfect little townhouse. Rented immediately. The condo, the one in Den, is having a super hard time to get it rented. And I think it's very back to, even though people are not buying, they're still appreciating certain things about what they're renting. May it be, outdoor space or, parking and, things that people are looking post-pandemic, more space, all those things are sort of translating into these buildings as well. So in DC, I'm up the street on U Street, and my condo building, we have a good amount of investors in there. Across the street, there's 2 new buildings just went up, both about 200 units, luxury apartments, pool, everything that you want. Of course, our 2006 condo building doesn't have any of this, so we have to compete with those. But the vacancy is crazy. I mean, there's just not enough people to sort of, put in. So, I think they're going to have to start slashing those prices.
So what would you tell the buyer, and we'll let Rob chime in, but what would you tell your buyer that has $1 million to park? You just mentioned you had a buyer that bought a house and a condo in the same roughly the same neighborhood. What would you tell your $1 million buyer?
Well, I think it's neighborhood specific, because I have an investor right now looking in Woodley Park area, and it's a tenanted building, and those tenants are not leaving. I mean, they want to stay there. It's a perfect investment where the tenants are already in place. They're paying good money. I think that eventually we could probably raise those rents. But in different locations where there is, like Navy Yard is a perfect example. You have 100 apartment buildings, and so when we're renting at the Bower, which is a condo building, I'm telling them they're going to be looking at these other buildings as well that have a million other amenities. They're offering 2 months rent and whatnot. So it's very sort of neighborhood specific, in my opinion.
I think when we drive through the neighborhoods like we all do, and we're heading to a condominium building, on the way, I make note. I have a little pen and paper in my car, and I write down the buildings that are new. Like, first, I find out, what's going on? Is it a condo or a rental? And I cringe when I go, luxury apartments, right? it really ruins my day. And then and I always go,
You're
what?
letting that ruin your day?
Yeah,
Oh,
and I
luxury
go,
rentals. Oh,
Oh,
what are
there's
real
another one.
estate agents going to do if they keep putting these apartments up? But what I do is I write them down and I put 300 so-called luxury units. I write that down. And then when I do get a call from a client, we had one yesterday, and he goes, oh, I'm thinking of selling. I go, and he's over in Noma. I go, City Vista. Or he goes, I think I may rent or I may sell. Well, then I call him back and I go, wow, we've got 9 buildings in your area that are all coming online. There's going to be 27,000 inventory.
Yeah, crazy, right?
And you're not going to be able to compete because your building is 15 years old and this building is brand new. No one's ever lived in it. Why would I want to go ahead and rent yours? It's 13 years old. And he's like, yeah, you're right. Or, well, then they keep pushing me back to maybe I'm going to rent. I'm like, well, then you're going to be in the $2,000 a month as opposed to $3,000, right? For brand new. Everyone's going to take brand new. They always do. That's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, it's a good tool to keep when you're going through the neighborhoods and you write down the buildings and you put, I had a rough day on Monday because I saw 5 apartment buildings that are going up, and they finally put the signs on there, and it does kind of like, we as realtors, we cringe. We should.
It is interesting, right? I'm thinking back, and this isn't on our cheat sheet, but all these new buildings that are going up, and Rob just mentioned luxury rentals, he cringes, but is that an issue because of DCRA or something with DC, the buyer agents? Because ultimately, these developers, it's easier for them to lease 100%, get 97% plus occupancy, and then turn around and sell it to a private equity.
Mm-hmm.
Like back in 2005, before the crash, everything was condos, and now everything is apartment buildings. Like all these cranes, for the most part, by and large, they're apartment buildings and not condos. And I'm just curious, like, what do you guys think the reason for that is?
I mean, it's a really stable investment vehicle for any kind of major portfolio. I mean, it's rental apartments.
Mm-hmm.
It's the classic stable investment piece for like the TIAA and all those pensions. That's what they want to own. And then you have the other equity groups that's what they're doing. That's what they want. Yeah. Doing the condo thing, I mean, there is a plenty of demand for new condo product. We know that we sell new condos all the time, but being the downtown area of DC being as transient as it is, and then you build these condos and the amenities are completely out of date within 2 years, and then you've got special assessments trying to upgrade a lobby, trying to upgrade a gym. The rental buildings are much more nimble to do this. It's all the money's there, and they're just constantly turning these things over. It's a tough competition. I really like what you said, Rob, though, about you've got your homeowner who wants to sell or maybe rent their condo. I mean, the choice there is, unless they want to deal with landlord BS, right, or paying a property manager. If they own it all cash, they own it outright, and they're just like, I'll hold it a few more years, that's no problem. But if they've only got like middling equity in it, and they have to get out from a note, they're sellers. They've got to sell.
Right.
It's just too much competition, especially in those locations.
Correct.
You
need to educate them too, because I think most of these homeowners are not aware of the laws and DC tenant laws and how tenant friendly DC is, like very, very tenant friendly. And when you start explaining to them, this could happen, you need this form, they're like, whoa, this is overwhelming. I thought I just put it on Zillow and get it rented and that's it. I'm like, I think you guys spoke about this in a previous podcast about keys for, what's it? Cash for keys, all these crazy things that all of a sudden makes you rethink, do I really want to get into this, or do I just want to be, just be done?
And
just buy Tesla stock.
Right.
Keep in mind that we just ratified a deal down at Capitol Quarter that's been off and on for 2 years because it's had tenants in there the entire time. So you start thinking, if I was a homeowner and I rented out my property, this guy's getting ready to retire. Military vet getting ready to retire has to be out by October 1 to get all of his benefits, or he loses a lot. Well, in this case, the tenant really holds all the power now, because now we've ratified and we've got 40 days to get the tenant out. Good luck.
Right.
So the pressure is back on us, but really the pressure is on the seller. So it does make one wonder, okay, we've had it on for 2 years because we had a tenant in there. So, it would have been an easy sale 2 years ago, in and out in 30 days.
And in that breath, it's the same thing. That seller is getting 15% less than the other market homes that we've sold in the last like 5 years, but the tenants destroyed that house. That's the other thing you can't
You have no
factor
control.
into your equation. It's like everyone that walked through that house and other ones, they looked at that one and bought something else because it was literally destroyed inside. Knock on wood, this thing closes.
Yeah.
By the time this thing airs.
We'll be talking next month if
Right.
it doesn't close,
See
right?
how that went. Last thing I'll say is, the older I get, like the more conservative I get with money, and like I really like to put money away and keep it safely away. Okay, like that's how I am now. And when it comes to real estate investing, I bought and sold many condos and rented out condos in DC. Did that for a while. There's no question, like Mattia, you're talking about your investor who had the townhouse that rented really quickly. If you're going to be investing money in real estate, the better investment, as always, if you can afford it, is the single family home, whether it's a townhouse or the house, like the smaller colonial house somewhere in like Chevy Chase with a yard. You will always find the renter demand for these. Okay? With the condos, it's too much other competing inventory, and they're only building more. So if you think you're going to buy a condo, and I'm not trying to like blow up the world for us as realtors. If you think you're going to buy a condo, and then you're going to be able to hold on to it for a little while and then rent it out, and I'll make like $300, $400 a month in cash flow, I got bad news for you. It's probably not going to happen.
It's true.
So,
But in the grand scheme of things, again, we're not giving investment advice by any means, but like buying real estate in general, whether it is a condo or a fee simple house, you have a tangible asset that you can always come back to. I don't know if this is true or not, but Michael Jordan sold the Hornets because from what I heard, he had a $500 million loss in the stock market. He bought GameStop at like when it went up to like 80. Now it's back down to 20. He lost $500 million. So he was, again, this is like, you can Google this, but like he had to sell the Hornets, sold it to his business partner for $6 billion or whatnot. So
he had some
got
margin
recouped.
debt or
there's
something.
Some back in there, but like
Yeah.
losing $500 million in the stock market, you're buying paper. Yes, it could go up and you could, you see all these .com people and Bitcoin whatnots, but
Well, that's another.
it's scary.
That's a whole nother.
That's a whole nother
podcast
topic. You know what I'm saying? But
conversation right
if you
there.
have a house, you can go and look at it. If you have a condo, you can go into it. And be
It's
like,
still
there.
It's still, yes, it's a tangible asset investment. There's no question. And like I said, wasn't trying to blow up the world there on that. And it also depends on where you are too. I mean, like in downtown DC, it just happens to be that the market is like that, right? You go to a place like New York, that's what's there. That's the kind of real estate you have. There is no choice of a townhouse unless you have $90 million. So.
And keep in mind, though, a particular condo that we had this investor look at is a penthouse with water views. So a lot different than being in the ground floor of that building,
Sure.
right? I would agree with you 100% on, I'm not buying a ground floor, barely am I buying on the second floor. But if you show me a penthouse, I'm going to buy it, hold on to it, and
unique property.
especially in Alexandria, Potomac Yards, where there's 5 cranes there right now at a brand new metro.
Yep.
So that's something
Yeah.
she's going to hold on to and then make some money on the sale in a couple years.
Right on.
Mattia brought this up at one of our meetings, but it's an interesting point, and I'll let Mattia go into it. But if you look back, and Max, maybe you have an answer. If you look back over the last couple of years, what new condo has done extremely well where you've made 10, 15, 20% over your purchase price?
Yeah, I was thinking any new construction within, let's say, the last 5 years, and I'm thinking Elysium in Logan, I'm thinking 1745N, I'm thinking the Bower, I'm thinking Avidian, I'm thinking all these big new construction. They got top dollar for them. They sold out, and then 2 years later, or 3 years later, no one's making a dime.
Worth
Or
less.
if anything, yeah. But many years ago, when we were looking at Velocity, for example, when it was new construction and now they're selling. Still, these people are still making money.
Remind me when Velocity was built?
I think it was like 2008 maybe?
Yeah.
I mean, that's another planet
complete.
from like
Right.
the last 2 to 5 years.
And that neighborhood's changed too.
Yeah.
where
Oh,
that
yeah,
the
yeah. There
old-
was
that one
nothing
in Capitol
there.
Hill Tower.
Yeah. No, Velocity's been a good one.
Yeah.
Really good. And that's a really nice building. Those are really nice units. They're very
I like that
straightforward.
building.
Layouts are good.
The only one that came to mind, as Rob mentioned, it's more so something that's unique, right? Like the VO down at the wharf.
Sure.
If you got one of those elevator-only units to have straight-on views of the water, there was a chef that was in town. I think he bought his for $2 million.
Mhm.
Turned around and sold for $2.5.
Mhm.
Like those units have made money. If you're getting your basic 1-bedroom in there, to Mattia's point, you're breaking even or you're losing a little bit when you
Sure.
have your transaction cost
Yeah.
into and out of it.
you're buying for different reasons and
Right.
different things.
I think you need to be aware. I'm
need to
buying
be
new
aware.
construction. I'm paying for it. I'm buying sort of this new product, and I may or may not
Yep.
sort of make money on it.
Okay, so here was a sort of fun one, not necessarily about the state of the market, but I love these kinds of articles. And this will lead us into another conversation. So, best state to retire in. It's not Florida. This is a New York Times clickbait article. Thank you, Lauren, for putting this in here. I hate articles like this because it's like
Massachusetts.
it's like right. Massachusetts at the bottom or something, and then Iowa's at the top.
That's the worst, Massachusetts.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so and obviously like Florida is our classic retirement center for everyone from the East Coast, right? But it wasn't at the top of the list. They put the top of the list were places where obviously the cost of living was lower, maybe it had something to do with crime rates, et cetera. But this just led me to another question altogether. Does any of you ever even think about retiring, like in real estate? Mattia, you're
Certainly
much
not
younger
me,
than
yeah.
us, I guess. But
Well, you're half my age. You can
right,
speak
yeah,
on
yeah.
this, right?
But so
Rob was in Nagsat for the first time ever.
yeah.
Looking at the beach property.
Yeah, what's
I'm
up?
trying to get Rob to retire. Every day I'm like,
Here we
when will
go.
you retire?
Yeah,
and just,
retire
I'm here
and just and hey, it's me
Yeah,
again.
every
Here's
day.
another name.
Yeah.
Here's another name.
go to the beach,
Yeah.
and I'm here. Like, you need to relax.
Yeah.
Mattia's plan is to buy Rob a little house in
Yeah,
Nagsat to get him
you
outside
buy him
of
the
here.
house in Nags
You
Head.
That's
know
probably
what?
what will
This could
happen.
be a
Yeah.
deal. We
Yeah.
can shake on this.
But seriously though, Brent, do you ever think about retiring? I mean, Brent, you do pretty well. You got it all going on. You could be retired right now and living a pretty good life.
Well, I mean, if I
You
look
could
at
just
this
be taking
article,
Ben back and forth to tennis like permanently. you know?
Yes. Well, yeah, and if he gets good, then I can just be his coach. Like I'd be Richard Williams out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've given it thought. Not that I'm retiring anytime soon, but it's like it depends on where you're retiring, right? I could retire tomorrow and go to West Virginia, my home state, and be done for the rest of my life.
Right.
But then I'm in West Virginia for the rest of my life, which it's a great place to be, but I don't want to be there for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
If I want to go to New York City or Florida, it's a different story.
Yep.
So we've got a thing up in our office, and it's from Warren Buffett. And I can't remember the phrase, but it's if you don't find a way to make money while you're sleeping, you're going to work until you die, which is true. So we've got to find some residual income from wherever, rental properties, mutual, whatever it is. We've got to find a way to make money so that we can retire wherever we want to. But to answer the question, I know that's a long answer.
Yeah.
I've given it thought.
Okay.
Well, I know you're looking at me, so
Yeah.
I definitely have given it thought. And actually, with another agent in the firm, Mansour, who's a great agent and love him to death, we've talked about retirement together.
Mm-hmm.
Like he looked at me and he goes, "What would I do?" And I go, "I have your plan." I said, "I have your plan laid out." And he goes, "What is my plan?" I go, "Your plan is going to be that you're going to leave D.C. and you will be either in Delaware, Arizona, or Florida." I go, and those are all tax friendly to retirees.
Delaware
He goes,
was near the top of the list on here.
and Delaware's a great state. So I go, "Here's what you're going to do." He goes, "What am I going to do?" And I go, "I've already got it figured out. Relax." And he goes, "Okay, what am I going to do?" I said, "I'm going to put you in either all your years experience. You've got 35 years experience as a realtor. You're going to take that and you're going to be in a new construction project in Delaware. There's like many companies from Shell to Insight to Ryan Homes, all of them down there. They will put you in their new home site from 11 to 5, perfect hours for you. Or you have a retirement community. I will put you in a 55 to older, brand new retirement community. You will work those sales. You will be paid 1% on each deal." He goes, "That's pretty good." I go, "You'll be home by 5 o'clock. You can have dinner, walk your dog, have your life." He goes, "That sounds like a really good deal." So I go, when you think about it, you won't lose your 35 years because as realtors, we love what we do, right? We love it. Even if we say we're going to retire, we're not going to go work at Target, and nothing against Target people. But,
Here's a Walmart greeter.
Yeah, Walmart greeter.
Right. Or I'd be what do you call the tee off guy at a golf course, right? Where you let them tee off, the starter. But you can always parlay, as long as you have your health, you can always parlay what you've learned over 35 years. And those two are the perfect avenues, 55 and older, right? Here, for example, me, I'd come in, I'm almost going to be 60, and I know you're shocked. Thank you guys for that. But when you think about it, I could be in there walking around in old folks, retirement community. They would never believe that I was 60, and they would rely off thinking that I'm probably 40. And then I would give them all the information, and they would really just love everything about me and my personality and all that. And then they would buy from me. So if you
They're
think
gonna be like,
about
what's this young guy doing working here?
Or they throw you into like fair housing because you're not 55.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
look
Right.
40.
well, that's true too. We could have, and then I'd have to pull out my license like I do a lot
Here's
of
my
times. to people.
AARP card.
Right, which I do have one. Thank you.
So your idea of retirement is a little different
Hybrid.
than probably most people's idea of retirement. So you
Because-
just want to still work, but just
Yeah.
work in a different capacity.
Correct.
Right,
11 to
because-
5 is fine, whereas right now I work 24/7, 7 days a week, right? I mean, I won't have to do that anymore because even if I went to work for new construction,
Right.
if Inside opens a brand new community, they're going to contact me. I'm going to sell all their 100 homes in front of a pond in Delaware, in Millsboro. It's a perfect setup.
What about you, Max?
I mean, I definitely saved plenty of money because I'm really uptight, but it's not nearly enough. That's all I'll say. So I will continue working. I mean, I think of being a realtor in the sense of what we do, like the way we do things. I think it's the type of job that requires a certain type of energy, obviously, and it's also, I feel like it's becoming a younger person's game because of media and everything else. So sometimes when I think of myself in those terms, I think like, am I old already?
Yeah.
And so the more I think that and the more days go by, the older I feel. And that's just my current state of mind. So I'm like, at what point do I feel like really it's time to hang it up? I don't know when that is, but I can see it like somewhere in the future. But I know a lot of realtors, we know plenty of realtors around here who are working into their 70s, into their 80s, until they're blind. You know,
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
we've seen it all. But it's possible. It's possible.
You hit the nail on the head. I spoke with a lender. This was probably in the spring. Very successful lender. He is now retired. And this is probably true with all of us, but he said it took him 4 months to disconnect. Because like in our field, like you're always like on, responding to emails, texts, calls. You're always on call. He said it took him 4 months to totally reset back to like normal. So it's interesting. I never
Mhm.
thought about that, but like you can't just quit tomorrow and then you're gone. It's like the urge and the itch to get out there and do a deal is going to stay with us for some time.
Well, on the similar topic, my dad is over 80 now. He's 80 years old, and he doesn't fully work like in his job 24/7, but he's still very connected with a lot of the same people he's been connected with his entire life, and he's still consulting on the side. It's all like medical PR stuff is what he does. He's still consulting on the side. He still gets called in to do meetings with people. He still travels for work occasionally because he loves it. He feels relevant doing it. That's what he's been doing for so long. What does he know? That's what he knows.
If
You
you
know?
enjoy it, right? I mean,
Mhm.
that's what we think about. We enjoy real estate. So I could wake up and retired and go golfing all day. I think that would I would be bored of that quickly. But to continue to do what we do and just do it in a relative, maybe not as fast pace.
Not as on the go.
Correct.
Right.
But no, none of us are retiring anytime soon. But I do think when you get to that stage, and I've seen so many people time over, especially in my home state, when you retire, you've got to do something to keep your mind sharp, or you're going to what is it the word disintegrate very quickly.
Mm.
You're going to go into the wind. Your mind's going to go blank, and you're
Yeah.
going to end up rotting and dying.
Oh my God.
Brent,
Very- and
Grim Reaper here.
yeah,
right.
the darkness.
You got to stay focused.
You got
True,
again.
that's
You could
very
be
true.
doing
Yeah.
puzzles or whatnot.
at least
crosswords,
puzzles. At least some
Wordle,
puzzles.
whatever is
Right.
in your thing.
It's Brent had touched on the fact that he said when we were talking about disengaging from the job, if you've ever followed the previous podcast, I had 2 jobs for 20 years. So I had the real estate job and the insurance job. When I finally did, Brent kept pushing me, you got to get out of there. You got to get out of there. You got to get out of there. When I finally did get out of there, it took me about 5 months to disengage from that job, like mentally. And I remember talking to Brent's wife, who's a big attorney, and she always said, "Hey, look, when our attorneys end up retiring, they pay for counseling for them to go because they don't know what to do when they wake up in the morning. They're
Yeah.
used to being at their desk and 1,000 emails. So those attorneys go to counseling for 4 to 6 months paid by the company to learn to disengage. So it did take me a lot to learn that I didn't have to be up at 7 a.m. heading, into Arlington to look at a vehicle. Now it took a long time. And I kind of counsel other people that I know that are retiring, and I tell them that too. You might want to go ahead and maybe think about counseling or talk to somebody about getting out of the day in and day out grind. And then they're like, oh, that really helped, because they'll be sitting there 2 weeks into it, retired, and they're like, what do we do? And they're staring out the window, and they don't know how to function, right? And that's something that's very important. So I'm glad your wife gave me that tip. So.
And any agents that are listening that do want to retire, they can reach out to the Robin Brent Group, and we'll take on
No,
all their
Maxwell
business.
Rabin.
There's another job. I could be a counselor at $150 an hour.
There you go.
There's a lot
I
of
was just
realtors
thinking
out
that.
there. Yeah, that would lead. I know that need a lot of help. So
Yeah.
there you go.
We'll give them a hefty referral. Go on out the door. Go to Iowa.
Like focused
Yeah,
realtor
we
counseling
could
from
sell
another
homes in
realtor.
Delaware and force them to retire.
Love
there
it.
we go.
All right, so we have another article here. It's I'm a top real estate agent. Here are the 4 most unexpected housing market trends for 2024. This was an article from, I guess it's from Go Banking Rates. Is that where it's from? So a Google special, we'll call it.
Yeah.
So we've got number 1 is basically, give me a second. Okay, so in this article, we've got 4 items. So number 1 was tight supply and high demand will still define the market, more so if rates fall. Now, this is what we were talking about earlier. So supply and demand is our driver right now. We're at the high interest rates. We got low inventory. If rates float down, it will open up the inventory and people will start to consider selling and moving. That's the idea. Is there anyone here who would argue the opposite of that? I mean, what else could we possibly be looking at? I mean, what goes up must come down and vice versa, right? So if we're looking at lower interest rates, then shouldn't we have some people opening up the inventory a little bit to try to move around?
I would agree.
Yeah, I think we're at the bottom as far as how many inventory wise. So it can't be much lower than this. Otherwise, there's just no homes, So I think at one point something is going to have to give, and whether it's rates or people sort of digesting the rates. And now it's been, October of last year was when rates first sort of hit their highest, and now it's been almost a year, let's say. So at this point, people have digested. I think that in general, people think they're going to trend down. And I was reading an article a few weeks ago about a study of people that purchased a home during the pandemic, so 2020, 21, 22, half of 2022. And it was a crazy number. 3 in 4 people regret their home purchase during the pandemic. For whatever reason. I mean, we know that during that time, people were just sort of losing their marbles and making decisions that perhaps were not the right ones. There were a lot of new agents entering the market, advising people on something that they had just not ever done. So people were being misadvised. And I think, and people were buying thinking the pandemic was never going to end. I need this huge, acre of land. And then, pandemic ends and we're back into the office, and who's cutting the grass, or, I'm going to be in the suburbs and I'm ready to, be suburban life. And then, the pandemic ends. Now I want to be back to the city at the bars. So I think that will get us some inventory for sure. That aspect alone. Yeah.
There's a lot to uncover with that. It's like, what are we telling buyers? And we can go around table. Like, a lot of the buyers are asking us, like, what do we think the rates are going to be like in the fall? What are the rates going to be like in the spring next year in 24? And yeah, we're going to say, go talk to a lender. We're not economists. But I'm telling people, like, next year is a presidential election year. Wherever they land, and I think they're going to be in the mid-5s sometime next year, they don't want the presidential election to be swung by the rates. I think they'll be 5.5% to 6%. When they get to 5.5%, I do not know. But I think once they get into the 5s, I think that's when you'll see a lot of buyers enter the pool. We're in Washington, D.C., and I think next fall will be very tricky. Fall of 24 is because it's an election year. People kind of stop and just focus on that. Transit City, yes, there's always moving, but I think there'll be a little bit less people moving next spring, next fall. And then this goes back to the pandemic. I think because people are still allowed to work from home, people are working from home and they're not coming into inner city USA. And this is not just Washington, D.C. There's other issues going on with inner city USA that are keeping people out of the city and that are causing people to leave the city, and they want to go to close in Chevy Chase, Arlington, Maryland, what have you. So it'll be interesting to see. Everything ebbs and flows. Like, when do people come back into the city on a regular basis? They want and need that synergy, working with people with like same kind of mind, doing the job that they're doing. So that's my 2 cents.
You know, I had lunch the other day with a really good lender in the city, and first words out of her mouth were, I am so busy. And it, like, we touched on that a little bit because she asked how I was doing, and I told her we're still pretty busy. I go, we're off from where we were last year, but it has definitely picked up. And the rate had actually went higher. And she's like, it's kind of funny that even though I'm above 7, Rob, I have had so many calls about people buying. So, I look at the lenders that keep telling me, so what are you thinking? Like, you keep waiting for us to tell you that we're going to go to 5.5 or 6.5. She goes, I don't see it anytime soon because right now we're still very busy. So she goes, I have my head people that I meet with, and she goes, they're like, keep doing what you're doing. Like, the pace is really good for the banks right now. But, her prediction is that in 1 year, as Brent was touched on it, that she felt that it would be close to the low 6s, or maybe even mid 5s. But she goes, again, we're in Washington, D.C. It doesn't seem to really stop people from buying, right? Like, maybe our first-time home buyer, we could, when we look at it, it's funny because I'm taking the continuing education courses again for my license, the renewal, and we were reading all about first-time home buyers. And I'm thinking they're the ones that when I get the buy call, like, hey, look, what is the rate is the first question, right? But anyone who's bought another home or more than one home, they're not asking those questions. They're still out looking. So it's kind of a different, I really don't know the take on that per se, because I still feel that we're doing good. I mean,
we're better than 8.
Yeah.
Part 2 of this article was talking about sellers being creative and offering seller financing. To be honest with you, I had a deal. I've only had one deal ever where we had seller financing in the deal and it didn't close. And it was an idea that was definitely a popular notion over the last 12 months or so, that like a seller could offer seller financing. It was discussed, but I haven't completed one deal with it. Have you had any sellers do that, Rob?
No, never.
Brent? No?
I just don't find it as an attractive option, actually, and I'm always worried, like you just said, it's not going to close.
We did one. I remember the building. I think it was it 2141 I Street? That's the presidential for the president.
Yeah.
It was a complete nightmare.
Right.
I don't know how we got it to closing, but it was a complete nightmare, and it closed. And this was probably like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was a small $200,000 studio, and it might have been like a med school student that didn't have any money, but they're going to make a lot of money. But they didn't have 2 pennies to rub together to close the deal, and the seller was willing to give financing back to the buyer, but it was just
too
not
iffy.
something I recommend.
It's too iffy. Yeah. If we lived in like an area, like a rural area, and you were trying to sell a farm or something, I can't even imagine. Like in DC, there's so much churn and movement that I can't imagine a seller would be into that.
And I think in that building, the presidential, if I remember, it's 80% rental. So you couldn't get a loan. So you've got no choice.
Expensive loans and inflated seller expectations. This is what we've been talking about. I'm still dealing with this too with some of my sellers. I always bring the data. I always discuss the exact specific comps. If it's a condo building, it's usually easy to find. If it's fee simple, I try to get very hyper local. I usually do radius searches for fee simple, and I still break it down per square foot. But we still have sellers who have an inflated idea of what their property is worth based on a year ago or 2 years ago. And then the high rates are kind of like also squeezing there. So just any quick hits for when you're talking to your sellers about what to expect from market value given the current rate environment and the most recent market data?
So it's funny that we were just recently pricing a condo the other day, and I pulled back for the last 12 months. And Mattia sits next to me and he goes, you need to pull for the last 90 days.
Right.
So, there was a little reality check there. But my point was there wasn't a lot of sales in the building at that point. But I think I was able to use, if I take the 12-month and I take the 90 days, I'm able to go, okay, when we met with that individual, this is what you were expecting, right? And this is where we are today, right? So that kind of got her looking at and going, okay, I understand. So that really did help, showing from a year ago to showing the last 90 days.
What do you do with Fee Simple, Brent, when you're doing a listing presentation and you've got a seller who's thinking like, I saw the last one of these sold for 2.5 million. I'm thinking I should be able to get 2.65. Any thoughts on that? How do you deal with that?
I think doing what you do exactly, you're hyper local with the data, and like Rob mentioned, you can't go back to what sold in the spring or the fall of last year, as Mattia does. You've got to point out like the last 90 days, 30. Keep it short to the season that you're selling in, and then also like that example, like you're going to bring in a whole new wave of buyers if you're south of 2.5, right? So if you're going over 2.5, it's a totally different price bracket in my mind, and then educating the seller to that point. And at the end of the day, it's the seller's going to make the decision. It's just as agents, do we want to take on that overpriced listing with the hope that they're going to drop it? And is that best for the seller? I mean, what's the saying? It's like, I don't even know. It's like first date your first wife and something like it goes on like the first, second, third person.
Right.
Like you want to be the third person in the door.
Right. And then lastly in this article, this will probably hit home with some of our listeners, our younger agents and agents who are looking for, just getting experience and learning a lot. But you're going to see fewer agents as a tough market weeds out the pretenders. Now, we've talked about how we've all been doing this here and our numbers are off. And, but we all do very well, even with our numbers are off. It's like, oh, we're going to do just fine.
Right.
We had some gangbusters years where it's like, all I could say is I hope you banked it. Cause like I banked a lot of that money. I was like, do not spend this. Cause we don't know when that's coming again. That was the big wave. But if you were like a $5 million agent, just getting your feet wet out there and you happen to be popping into the market in the pandemic years, 5 to 10 million agent, this year could be like literally zero, right? For a lot of agents. So, I don't really have anything else to say to that. I think it's been really tough for some of these newer agents or less experienced agents out here.
Yeah. I think we get hit a lot. I mean, a couple of things. We get hit a lot with other new agents, like what are we doing? Or even veteran agents, like what are we doing for business? Can we help them? And we're always eager to help them where we can. But I do think you're going to see a lot of agents get weeded out of the industry. These agents, lenders, home inspectors, title companies, it's good to have a cleansing of any industry. And I think that's kind of what we're going through right now, where you jump in the pandemic bubble, you make $5 to $10 million in volume sales, which is good commission. And the next thing you know, you're doing rentals and you're not at a quarter of what you were making during the pandemic. We've been very fortunate, and also try not to tout our success throughout the office, because I do think that there are agents that are struggling. So we want to be mindful of that. As a group, we're down about 25% year over year compared to where we were last year. If you look at DC in general is down 20%. The metro area is down around 20% as well. So, those are closed volume sales. And we're trending right in line with that as well. But we're still doing very well as a group. So that's my 2 cents on that matter.
I think what we've done is made a lot of our availability to other agents. So, like, we have a few that used to be on our team that are no longer on our team, or that are no longer at TTR. They'll still call us and they'll ask for help. And I've even brought a few in and say, okay, why didn't it sell? Or why has it been on for 5 months? If you'd like, we could help you out and we'll work with you. Because we enjoy what we do. And there's never like I don't say there's a monetary gain from us. Like, we'll go, if we can help you, we'll help you, period, right? And that's because we love what we do. And we think that other agents, when they come in and they explain all the things that they haven't done. So number one thing, I go, what have you done? And you'll hear, oh, I put it in the MLS. I'm like, okay, is there anything else that you've done? And they're like, nothing. I go, let's go through the checklist of what we should be doing, right? And after a while, you'll get them revved back up again. And then next thing you know, it's under contract. So I do agree that we're going to lose a lot of people out there. And for them, I worked 2 jobs for 20 years. So I do have sympathy for them. But I also knew that I had to pay the bills, right? So I knew if real estate didn't work out, I would have I had another job to back it up, right? And I'm not telling all realtors to run out and get a part-time job, but maybe you have to, right? To be when the times are bad, like you said, bank the money. A lot of people don't bank the money.
Right.
So in this case, you have to do what you need to do. Or you find yourself a good partner like Brent Jackson, and you're good to go.
Yep.
There
I've
you go.
heard Rob on many occasions tell agents to go ahead and retire at an early age and send him all the business.
I have said that, yes. And you know what? That has prompted a lot of deals that have been sent to Rob and Brent based on that. So,
Mattia, I'll put you on the spot a little bit. So, like, let's say another agent comes to you and is asking you, like, I haven't had a sale in 6 months. What are your top 3 things that you would tell an agent who's really, like, you can feel their struggle?
3 words, not my problem. No.
that's
No, 2 years ago when he was younger.
You're like,
Wow.
oh, I'm sorry, I got all those listings that you were supposed to get. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, it depends on who's coming to you, right? Because we all know that the people that are putting the work in and to successfully do real estate, you can't do it part-time. I believe that. I don't know if people disagree, but if you're going to be a full-time, successful real estate agent, it is a full-time job and then some. I mean, the hours are never ending. So the idea that real estate is part-time or I make my own hours, I can work 1 hour in the morning, and it's absolutely fake and not true. So if the person that is coming, you've observed them, that they've put the work, that they're always there, they're focusing on what to do, they're learning about the market, going to open houses, going to brokers open, that's somebody that just needs a little bit of help. And yes, let's sit down and totally talk about what worked for me when I first started, But there's some other people that are just not doing it. And so unfortunately, I don't think you can teach drive. Brent says this all the time. And that's true. You have to have you're an independent contractor. You're your own business. And if you don't have sort of the excitement and energy to wake up and put the energy into it and become a master of the job, then it's just never going to work, no matter how much help you may get.
So I asked you for 3 items. So so number 1 is wake up.
Yes, exactly.
And work. And then give me a third. Just give me a third one. What's top on your list? What's top on your list every morning?
And focus on yourself and not other people. There's so many new agents. Oh, but so and so has gotten 3 listings. I don't care.
Right.
This is just a waste. You just are talking about this, and we could have been focusing on generating your business. Why are we comparing? Because everybody has a different journey, and it is tough because we are in that field where we're constantly reminded, like we're about to head to the Best of Washingtonian party tonight. Here's top agent here. This person sold this.
I don't even play that anymore.
Yeah.
So it is a tough field where there's a lot of comparison, there's a lot of competition, but you
really
need to sort of put your blinders on and just
you got to be careful of that.
keep going. Yeah.
And that's any agent, new agent or a veteran agent. Like, you can scroll through any social media feed and like, oh, this agent just sold $100 million year to date. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
Great for him, but like, you can't get caught
Really?
up in what your neighbor agent just did. You've got to stay in your lane and just focus on what you can do and what you want to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Don't be the audience for that. That's for someone else. Like,
Right.
because you can get depressed looking at things like that if you think about it the wrong way.
Right.
But just you got to stay motivated, keep moving forward. If this is what you want to do, just keep doing it.
I remember everyone's a top agent, right? So
Everyone's
I think
a
that
top
would be a
agent.
great show where Mattia loves to do numbers. He can go through all
here
the
we go.
current agents' numbers, and we can go and find out.
We're just
who
going to open
really-
up Home Snap.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sometimes
who really
people
is a top
fudging
agent
around
and who isn't.
Sometimes
Period.
people add a few zeros.
Anybody that wants
We will literally open up Washingtonian magazine and say, "Here's a top agent," and then
Yeah,
go to
right.
Home Snap.
anybody that wants to pay $5,000 is a top agent.
Yeah, there you
Correct.
go.
Whether you had 1 sale or 100 sales.
Exactly right.
Max, you want to wrap it up? Just kind of go
Yeah,
through, like, what do we think? What's our thought for the rest of 2023?
Right. So the rest of 2023, I think that, I don't mean to be boring, but I think it'll pick up in the fall after Labor Day. I know we have some new inventory coming on over the next few weeks, so that'll give us a little boost going into that fall season. I've got some buyers who have been away on vacation. They're coming back from vacation to get serious. That's pretty typical here in DC, right? August is usually pretty slow. And I think we'll have a pretty normal, steady fall market. I have no idea what interest rates are going to do. I really don't expect any miracles in the interest rate environment. I mean, I just don't.
Question for you. Early August, you're out of town in Japan, but if you're in town, what are you telling your sellers? Do they list early August or do they wait after Labor Day?
I've always been, and I learned this from Jonathan Taylor. It's like when you're ready, you're ready. And I think that it does depend a little bit on the type of property, But given the low inventory, particularly right now, I'd say just if you got your property ready to put on the market, just get it on the market. If it's going to be the kind of thing that's going to be on the market and accumulate days just because of what it is, then it's going to accumulate days now or it's going to accumulate days later. You might as well just get it out there, see who's out here, you be in the market. If it's a fee simple house in one of our like top popular neighborhoods, like Upper Northwest neighborhoods, Chevy Chase, AU Park, Spring Valley, take your pick, get it on the market. There's nothing for sale. There are things for sale that are overpriced. I was out there looking at a house the other day. I was like, this house should be sold, but it's probably overpriced by like, I don't know, well over 10%. It's just a price adjustment thing because it would sell. I've seen other things sell. So I'm just like, go on the market. Go for it.
Mattia, what do you think? Rest of 23?
I think definitely better than last fall. We'll see definitely a little bit more inventory, hopefully. I'm hopeful for next spring. That's what my eye is set on. I think next spring will be a good spring.
Right on.
I think I'm always optimistic. So I have a feeling that we're going to do really well. I think that there are people that are still waiting to purchase, right? Their leases are coming up end of the year. They are definitely hoping for a better rate, but I think they're still going to end up ultimately pulling the trigger. And we have a lot of people that are waiting on the fence. So I'm predicting that it'll be a very good year for us and hopefully for everyone else out there.
I agree. I think the fall market will be similar to what it was probably 2019 before the pandemic. It'll be busy. It'll be active. Will it be like it was in the pandemic? Absolutely not. Will it be like it was last fall? I hope not. So I'm optimistic as well that across the board, the market will pick back up, and I'm very hopeful for the spring that whatever happens in the spring, it'll be a very active market.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot for coming down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks for
seeing
having
y'all.
us. Good job.
Thanks for listening to Keyed In with your hosts, Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. For more information on selling your home, find us online at keyedinpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe to Keyed In on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Keyed In Podcast, at Rabin Max, and at Brent E. Jackson. And follow Max on TikTok at MaxwellRabin_properties.